They say timing is everything. That some moments look like failure only because you're standing too close to the fire to see what it's forging. At 27, Ethan Cole didn't feel forged. He felt erased. The email was polite, almost kind. After careful consideration, we've decided not to move forward at this time. Ethan stared at the screen in the dim light of his one-bedroom apartment. The same sentence, the same words, the same ending. Again. That made 32 rejections, 32 firms, 32 interviews that started with excitement and ended in silence. And he knew exactly why. 2 years earlier, Ethan Cole had graduated valedictorian from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Department of Structural Engineering. Top GPA, published research, a design thesis that had been cited by 3 industry journals before he even walked across the stage. Professors had called him the future of sustainable infrastructure. Recruiters had shaken his hand and said, "We'll be in touch." They were, just not with offers, because behind closed doors, another name was being spoken. Daniel Cole, founder and CEO of Cole Dynamics Group, one of the most powerful engineering and construction firms in North America. And unfortunately for Ethan, Daniel Cole was his father. No one ever said it directly, but the pattern was too clean to be coincidence. Firms would schedule interviews, executives would smile, until Ethan said his last name. Phone calls would stop after internal discussions. Emails would come late, careful, neutral. Every door opened just enough to let him see what was inside, then shut.
"You could have had everything," Daniel had said calmly across a polished oak desk 2 years ago. The office smelled of leather and money. "You just had to apologize." Ethan remembered his hands clenched into fists. "For what?" he'd asked. "For embarrassing this family." The argument replayed in his mind like a scar that refused to fade. Ethan had exposed safety violations inside one of Cole Dynamics' overseas projects, falsified reports, rushed materials, bribes to inspectors. He hadn't gone public. He had gone internal, believing integrity still mattered, believing his father would listen. Instead, Daniel Cole had buried the report and buried Ethan with it. "You don't destroy your own blood," Daniel had said coldly. "You protect it." Ethan had walked out that day with nothing but his degree and his principles. Daniel had made sure principles didn't pay rent. Now Ethan waited tables. Not because he wasn't capable, but because someone very powerful wanted him tired, humiliated, and desperate. The restaurant was loud that night, silverware clinking, laughter, glasses raised. Ethan moved between tables smoothly, his posture still precise, a habit he couldn't shake. At table 7, 2 men in tailored suits talked loudly about infrastructure bids. Ethan heard words like urban renewal and multi-billion contract. His fingers tightened around the tray. This was his world, just not allowed to touch it. "Excuse me," a soft voice said. He hesitated. "I'm working, ma'am." She smiled. "I know, I won't take long." Something about her tone made him pull out the chair. She studied him closely. "You're Daniel Cole's son," she said. Ethan froze. "I'm sorry," she continued gently. "I don't mean to intrude. I knew your grandmother." His heart skipped. "My grandmother?" he repeated. "She talked about you constantly," the woman said. "Said you had her mind." Ethan swallowed. His grandmother, Margaret Cole, had died 15 years ago. She had been the only one who ever challenged Daniel. "She left you something," the woman said quietly. Ethan frowned. "I think you're mistaken." The woman reached into her handbag and placed a thick manila envelope on the table, sealed with dark red wax. Ethan's breath caught. The wax seal bore a symbol he recognized instantly, a compass rose, his grandmother's mark. "She told me," the woman said, standing, "that if you ever looked defeated, it was time." Ethan stared at the envelope like it might disappear. "What is this?" he asked. "A reminder," she said, "that seeds don't grow the moment you bury them." She left before he could ask another question. Ethan didn't open the envelope that night. He carried it home like something sacred, sat at his small kitchen table, and stared. Inside were documents, old ones, blueprints, legal filings, correspondence, and at the bottom, a handwritten letter. "Ethan, if you're reading this, it means Daniel finally tried to break you. Good, because men like him only understand power, and power is built quietly. I've prepared something for you, not as a weapon, but as a foundation. You won't win by confronting him. You'll win by becoming unavoidable." Ethan's hands trembled. The documents detailed a dormant trust created years ago. Minority stakes in patents, early investments in sustainable materials, ownership percentages Daniel never knew about. His grandmother had hidden assets in plain sight, waiting. At the end of the letter, one final line. "When the time comes, call this number." A number followed. No name. Ethan leaned back. For the first time in 2 years, the room didn't feel so small. 3 days later, his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Almost. "Ethan Cole?" a woman's voice said. "Do you know why I asked to meet you?" He straightened. "No, ma'am." She smiled. He could hear it. "Because your father doesn't." Catherine Hale, CEO of Horizon Developments, the largest private infrastructure firm in the country, a woman Daniel Cole feared. "We have 45 minutes, she said. "After that, everything changes." Ethan looked at the envelope one last time, then stood. The seeds had been planted long ago. Now, they were ready to break the ground.
Power never announces itself. It waits. Ethan arrived at Horizon Developments 10 minutes early. Not because he was eager, but because he'd learned something very important over the last 2 years. Men like his father respected control, not confidence. And control began with silence. Catherine Hale's office was nothing like Daniel Cole's. No marble columns, no gold accents, no oversized desk meant to intimidate. Just glass, steel, and space. A city spread below them like a living blueprint. "You're wondering why I agreed to meet a waiter," Catherine said casually, pouring coffee. Ethan didn't flinch. "No," he replied. "I'm wondering why you waited 2 years." Catherine smiled. "Good," she said. "Your grandmother would have liked that answer." She slid a folder across the table. Inside were project projections, material patents, and something that made Ethan's eyes sharpen. Cole Dynamics Group, Risk Exposure Analysis. "You've been blacklisted," Catherine said bluntly. "Not officially, but effectively." "I know." "No," she corrected. "You know part of it." She tapped the page. "Your father didn't just warn firms away from you," she said. "He rewrote the narrative." Ethan's jaw tightened. "What narrative?" "That you're unstable," Catherine replied calmly. "Ethically unpredictable. Brilliant, but dangerous." She let that sit. "In our industry," she continued, "that's worse than incompetence." Ethan exhaled slowly. "So why am I here?" Catherine leaned back. "Because your grandmother was one of the smartest investors I've ever known, and because she asked me to watch you."
That stopped him. She believed Daniel would underestimate patience, Catherine said. And she was right. Catherine didn't offer him a job. She offered him cover. For the next 6 months, she said, you won't exist. Ethan frowned. I'm sitting right here. Publicly, she clarified, you'll still be a nobody.
No link de updates.
No press.
No announcements.
She slid another document forward. Privately, you'll help us design a system no one thinks you're capable of touching. The project name was redacted, but the scope wasn't. Multi-city infrastructure overhaul. Smart load balancing. Sustainable materials. Fail-safe redundancies. The kind of project that redefined careers. And my father? Ethan asked quietly. Catherine's eyes sharpened. He'll be invited to bid, she said. But he won't know who he's really competing against. Ethan nodded. He didn't smile. This wasn't victory. This was planting the second seed. The next 6 months were the hardest work of his life. Ethan lived like a ghost. Daytime, still waiting tables. Night, designing systems that would outlive him. He slept 4 hours a night. 8 standing up. Filled notebooks with equations, sketches, contingency maps. Catherine kept her word. No one knew Ethan was involved. But people felt his presence. Problems that had stumped Horizon teams for weeks were suddenly solved overnight. Design flaws disappeared without explanation. Material efficiency jumped by 12%. Engineers whispered, "Who's doing this?" Catherine only smiled. One night, Ethan stayed late. The office was quiet. He stood at the window, city lights flickering like a circuit board. For the first time in years, he wasn't angry. He was focused. Then the bid announcement came. Coal Dynamics Group entered aggressively. Lower costs. Faster timeline. Daniel Cole himself led the pitch. He stood in front of investors, confident, polished, unstoppable. What about failure risk? One bored me. He didn't know why. But he felt it. At Coal Dynamics headquarters, Daniel stood at his window, phone pressed to his ear. "Find out who designed Horizon's system," he snapped. "I want names." "Yes, sir." Back at Horizon, Catherine poured 2 glasses of wine. "To patience," she said. Ethan raised his glass. "To invisibility," he replied. But Catherine didn't smile. "This is where men like your father become dangerous," she warned. "He'll start looking inward." She was right. 2 weeks later, Ethan noticed something strange. His old professor called. Then another. Then an acquaintance from MIT. All asking the same question. "Are you working again?" Someone was digging. Ethan told Catherine. She nodded calmly. "Good," she said. "That means it's time." She handed him another envelope. This one thinner. Inside was a press invitation. Horizon Developments, Strategic Advisory Announcement. No names listed. Yet. "You won't hide forever," Catherine said. "And when you step into the light, you don't flinch." That night, Ethan dreamed of his grandmother. She stood at a table, planting seeds. "Not all growth is visible," she said. "But roots always reach first." The morning of the announcement, Ethan stood backstage. Suit pressed. Hands steady. He heard murmurs outside. Executives. Journalists. Investors. Somewhere in that room. Daniel Cole. The room didn't applaud right away. Not because Ethan Cole lacked presence, but because shock had a sound of its own. A soft, collective inhale. Daniel Cole sat perfectly still in the third row. For a man who had built an empire on control, uncertainty was unfamiliar territory. His son stood on stage, calm, composed, undeniable. Not asking. Not explaining. Presenting. Ethan spoke clearly. Not with bitterness. Not with accusation. With data. He explained the framework. The redundancies. The philosophy behind resilience over speed. Every slide dismantled assumptions Daniel had taught the industry for decades. Not aggressively. Elegantly. When Ethan finished, the room erupted. Investors leaned forward. Executives whispered. Journalists typed furiously. Daniel didn't clap. He stood. "I have a question," Daniel said. The room stilled instantly. Catherine's jaw tightened. Ethan met his father's gaze. Yes, he said. You do. Daniel smiled, a familiar weapon. This design philosophy, he said, is interesting. But risky. Ethan nodded once. Only if you're afraid of transparency. A ripple of murmurs followed. Daniel's smile thinned. And who, he asked, exactly verified these projections? Ethan didn't look at Catherine. He clicked the remote. A new slide appeared. Independent audits. 3 firms. The logos filled the screen. The same firms that had once rejected Ethan. Verification completed last month, Ethan said evenly. Without influence. Daniel sat back. For the first time, he looked old. The event ended with cameras flashing. Ethan didn't seek his father. Daniel didn't approach him. Not yet. The invitation came that evening. A single message. Boardroom. 9 p.m. No sender name. Just a location Ethan knew by heart. Coal Dynamics headquarters. Catherine read it silently. This is the room, she said. Ethan nodded. The one he thinks he controls. The boardroom lights were dim when Ethan arrived. Floor-to-ceiling windows. City glowing beneath them. Daniel stood alone. Hands clasped behind his back. You look well, Daniel said without turning. Ethan closed the door. So do you. Silence stretched. Then Daniel laughed softly. Did you enjoy humiliating me? He asked. Ethan shook his head. This wasn't about you. Daniel turned sharply. Everything is about me in this building. Ethan placed a folder on the table. This is why I'm here. Daniel didn't touch it. I know what's inside, he said. Your grandmother's little tricks. Ethan blinked. You knew. I suspected, Daniel said. She was always disobedient. Ethan's voice stayed calm. She prepared for this. Daniel scoffed. She prepared you to fail. Ethan opened the folder. Inside were legal documents. Old. Precise. Coal Dynamics, Ethan said, is currently non-compliant with 5 international safety standards. Daniel stiffened. You're bluffing. Ethan Slee. Ethan leaned forward. Without integrity, he said, you're finished. The room felt smaller. Daniel sank into his chair. For the first time. He looked defeated. You could have joined me, Daniel muttered. I tried, Ethan said. They sat in silence. Then Daniel asked the one question that mattered. What do you want? Ethan thought of his grandmother. Her letters. Her patience. Her faith. I want you to step down, Ethan said. Quietly. Daniel laughed bitterly. And if I don't? Ethan slid the final document across. Succession clause. Activated. Signed. Stamped. Legal. Daniel closed his eyes. Margaret Cole's signature stared back at him. She always chose you, he whispered. The next morning, headlines broke. Daniel Cole resigns. Health reasons cited.
No scandal. No spectacle.
Just an ending. Ethan didn't take his father's chair. He didn't want it. Weeks later, Ethan stood on a construction site at dawn. Catherine joined him. World's watching you now, she said. He smiled slightly. Let them. Any regrets? She asked. Ethan shook his head. Only that it took me so long to stop trying to be seen, and start building. As the sun rose, steel beams caught the light. Foundations set. Structures rising. Ethan took out one last letter. From his grandmother. Unread until now. You don't win by becoming them. You win by becoming unavoidable. The harvest always comes. Ethan folded the letter. And walked forward.